The massive Catherian warships cut through Earth's blue sky like silver daggers, their hulls gleaming against the afternoon sun. Inside the lead vessel, Commander Velthan pressed her scaled palm against the observation window, studying the world below with predatory satisfaction. Her yellow eyes scanned the primitive landscape, noting the scattered cities and crude transportation networks that crawled across the planet's surface like simple insects. "Look at them," she whispered to her second-in-command, Mordok, who stood beside her, reviewing tactical displays. "They still burn fossil fuels for energy. Their weapons are projectile-based. They cannot even unite their own species under a single government." Mordok's mandibles clicked in amusement. "The preliminary scans confirm it, Commander. This world possesses no orbital defenses, no energy shields, no quantum weaponry. Their most advanced technology appears to be basic nuclear fission." Velthan straightened her ceremonial armor, feeling the familiar weight of conquest settling on her shoulders. In her 3 centuries of service to the Catherian Empire, she had overseen the absorption of 47 worlds. Each had followed the same pattern: initial fear from the native populations, desperate attempts at resistance, and finally grateful submission to superior civilization. The humans would be no different. "Deploy the standard first contact protocol," she ordered, her voice carrying across the bridge. "Select a landing site away from major population centers. We will make contact with a small group first, demonstrate our superiority, and then negotiate with their leaders." The ship's artificial intelligence immediately began scanning the surface, identifying potential landing zones. Within minutes, it had located an isolated research facility nestled in a valley between rolling hills. The structure appeared to house perhaps a dozen humans, making it perfect for their purposes. "Excellent," Velthan said, examining the facility through their enhanced viewing systems. "A scientific outpost. Their researchers will be more rational than their military forces. We can establish communication protocols and begin cultural assessment." The landing party, assembled in the ship's departure bay, consisted of 6 beings, each a specialist in their field. There was Kekstar, the xenobiologist who had classified over 200 alien species. Nixon served as their cultural interpreter. Skilled in reading the behavioral patterns of primitive civilizations, Atum Mordok would handle military assessment, while Velthan herself would manage diplomatic contact. Their transport ship detached from the main vessel with barely a whisper, its advanced propulsion systems carrying them toward the surface in complete silence. Through the small windows, Velthan watched the human world grow larger. Noting the chaotic arrangement of their settlements, the inefficient use of their agricultural land, and the obvious pollution clouding their atmosphere. "Such waste," she murmured. "They consume resources without planning, fight among themselves over territory, and poison their own environment. They will benefit greatly from Catherian guidance." The transport touched down in a clearing near the research facility, its landing systems barely disturbing the grass beneath. As the exit ramp lowered, Velthan felt the familiar thrill of first contact. This moment always marked the beginning of a new chapter in galactic civilization, but as her boots made contact with Earth's soil, something felt wrong. The air itself seemed to hum with an energy that their sensors had not detected from orbit. Their portable equipment, which had functioned perfectly on dozens of other worlds, began displaying erratic readings. Commander Mordok's voice carried a note of confusion as he examined his tactical scanner. "The electromagnetic field readings are inconsistent with our preliminary data. There appears to be some form of interference pattern." Velthan frowned, checking her own instruments. Energy signatures were unlike anything in their databases. More concerning, their communication array was experiencing periodic disruptions that made no sense given the primitive technology they had observed. "Perhaps atmospheric interference," she suggested, though doubt crept into her voice. "Continue with the mission." The research facility stood before them, a simple concrete structure that looked exactly like the basic buildings they had cataloged on dozens of primitive worlds. Nothing about it suggested advanced technology or hidden capabilities. Yet the strange energy readings continued to fluctuate around them. Then the facility's main door opened, and 3 figures emerged into the daylight. 2 human males and 1 female walked toward them with measured steps, their faces showing curiosity rather than the terror that usually greeted Cytherian arrival. The female led the group, her black hair flowing behind her as she approached. She wore simple clothing that appeared to be standard human attire, nothing to suggest she was anything more than a basic researcher. But something in her confident stride made Velthin's combat instincts activate. When the human female stopped, just a few meters away and spoke, her words froze the Cytherian team in place. The language that emerged from her lips was perfect High Cytherian, spoken with the precise accent of their homeworld's academic institutions. "Welcome to Earth," the human said, her dark eyes meeting Velthin's without fear. "I am Dr. Hannah Kim. We have been expecting you." The silence that followed was deafening. In 3 centuries of conquest, no primitive species had ever greeted them in their own language. No isolated world had ever claimed to expect their arrival. Something was very wrong. Commander Velthin's jaw dropped open, her sharp teeth gleaming in the sunlight. In all her years of conquest across the galaxy, no primitive species had ever spoken her language. The words came from the human female's mouth with perfect pronunciation, each sound exactly as it would be spoken on the Cytherian homeworld. Mordok's hand moved instantly to his weapon, the energy cells humming to life with a dangerous blue glow. His eyes narrowed as he stared at the 3 humans who stood before them with calm expressions. "Answer the question, primitive," he growled. "How do you know our sacred language?" Dr. Kim tilted her head slightly as if considering how to explain. "Something simple to a child. We learned it the same way we learned about your quantum engines," she said casually. "The same way we discovered your neural control systems and your ship's energy patterns. We have been watching your people for many years." The words hit Velthin like a physical blow. Quantum displacement technology was classified at the highest levels of Cytherian military science. Neural interface systems were secrets known only to their most advanced engineers. No species outside their empire should know these things existed. Dr. June Park stepped forward, his movements relaxed and confident. He approached their equipment without asking permission, his hands moving over the malfunctioning devices with disturbing knowledge. "Your bioneural circuits work on interesting principles," he said, making small adjustments to components that should have been impossible for any outsider to understand. "The organic integration is clever, though we found better ways to link biological and artificial systems." As he spoke, the equipment that had been failing since their arrival suddenly began working perfectly. Displays lit up with clear readings, communication arrays stopped crackling with interference, and energy scanners returned to normal function. The human had fixed their advanced technology using knowledge he should not possess. Velthin watched in growing horror as Dr. Park continued his examination. He spoke about quantum entanglement as if it were basic science, discussed energy field manipulation like a casual topic, and demonstrated understanding of technologies that had taken her species centuries to develop. Meanwhile, Dr. Min Lee had pulled out a simple writing tablet and begun sketching diagrams with quick, precise strokes. Velthin glanced at his work and felt her blood turn cold. The drawings showed detailed fleet formations, tactical positioning patterns, and strategic deployment methods that were classified military secrets. "Your ships are arranged in Standard Pattern 7, Dr. Lee observed, not looking up from his sketching. "That formation is typically used when you expect to face a Category 5 civilization. Basic technology, no space travel, minimal resistance. Expected." He paused and looked directly at Velthin. "Are you planning to strip our world of resources, or do you intend to absorb our population into your empire?" The question struck Velthin like lightning. Pattern 7 was classified information known only to Cytherian fleet commanders. Category 5 assessment protocols were military secrets that even many of her own officers did not fully understand. This human was discussing galactic conquest strategies as if he had studied them in school. "This cannot be happening," Velthin whispered to Mordok, her voice shaking. "They are supposed to be primitive. Our scan showed basic technology. We should be cowering in fear, not discussing our military doctrine." Mordok's weapon remained charged, but confusion replaced his earlier confidence. Commander, their behavior patterns match no known primitive species. They show no fear response, no submission indicators, no recognition of our superior position. Dr. Kim had been listening to their whispered conversation, and now she stepped closer. "We can hear you perfectly well," she said with a gentle smile. "Your vocal range is within human hearing capabilities. And yes, we understand your confusion. Most species you encounter probably react with terror when your ships arrive." She gestured toward the research facility behind them. "Would you like to come inside? I think we need to have a much longer discussion about the nature of our civilization. There seem to be some serious mistakes in your initial assessment." Elfin felt her primary hearts beating rapidly in her chest. Every instinct told her to retreat, to return to the ship and request backup. But her duty as a commander demanded she gather intelligence about this impossible situation. How could a primitive world produce beings who spoke their language, understood their technology, and knew their military secrets? "You claim to have been studying us," she said, trying to regain control of the situation. "But our intelligence networks would have detected any primitive species attempting to observe our civilization. We monitor all communications, all space, travel, all energy signatures across this entire sector." Dr. Park looked up from the equipment he was examining, his expression almost pitying. "Commander, your detection methods are designed to identify threats that match your own technological level. You look for quantum signatures, energy patterns, and communication methods that mirror your own development. But what if a species chose a completely different path?" The implications of his words sent chills through Velthana's entire body. If these humans had developed along different technological lines, they had capabilities that Cytherian science could not detect, then everything about this mission was wrong. Dr. Kim extended her hand in what appeared to be a human gesture of friendship. "Please come inside. Let us show you what humanity has really been doing for the past few centuries. I think you will find it quite educational." Inside the research facility, Dr. Park led them to what appeared to be a simple laboratory, filled with basic equipment. Velthan relaxed slightly, recognizing the primitive tools and simple workbenches that matched their intelligence reports about human technology. But her relief vanished when Dr. Park began gathering seemingly random materials from around the room. "Let me show you something interesting," he said, picking up pieces of metal, glass, and what looked like ordinary wire. His hands moved with practiced skill, connecting components in ways that made no sense according to Cytherian science. Within minutes, he'd assembled a device that hummed with familiar energy signatures. Velthan's eyes widened as she recognized the quantum resonance patterns. "That is impossible," she breathed. "Those are basic materials. You cannot create quantum interface technology from primitive components." Dr. Park smiled and connected his improvised device to their quantum communicator. The advanced Cytherian equipment immediately responded, displaying readouts that showed a perfect connection. "Your encryption methods are quite sophisticated," he said, studying the data streams flowing across their screens. "The multi-dimensional encoding is elegant work. But there is a weakness in the seventh-dimensional matrix that creates predictable patterns." As he spoke, his fingers danced across the device's surface. The quantum communicator's security protocols, designed to be unbreakable by any known technology, began displaying error messages. Within moments, Dr. Park had complete access to their communication networks. "We identified this vulnerability about 30 years ago," he explained casually. "Most galactic civilizations use similar quantum encryption methods. The mathematical principles are sound, but the implementation has flaws." Mordok stepped forward, his weapon systems charging with deadly energy. "You will cease this demonstration immediately," he commanded. "Accessing Cytherian military communications is an act of war." But Dr. Lee had moved to a different workstation, where multiple screens displayed information that made Velthan's blood freeze. Classified tactical databases, fleet movement patterns, and strategic planning documents scrolled across the displays. Information that should have been impossible for any outsider to access was laid out like an open book. "Your conquest procedures are very thorough," Dr. Lee observed, studying the data with academic interest. "Detailed psychological profiles, resource assessment protocols, cultural integration strategies. It's quite impressive for a species that has absorbed 47 worlds. He paused and looked directly at Velthan. Though I notice your behavioral assessments for humans are badly outdated. The last update was over 200 cycles ago. Velthan felt panic rising in her chest. Those files contained information about every world the Catherian Empire had. Conquered every species they had absorbed, every strategic weakness they had discovered. The fact that these humans could access such data suggested capabilities far beyond anything their intelligence had detected. "How are you doing this?" she demanded. "Our security systems are quantum encrypted with bioneural locks. No primitive species should be able to breach them." Dr. Lee glanced up from his screens. "We have been studying your technology for much longer than you realize. Every signal you broadcast, every quantum signature you emit, every energy pattern you generate, we have been listening, learning, and preparing." Mordok had reached his limit. His plasma weapon rose to firing position, energy crackling along its length with lethal intensity. "Enough of this mockery," he snarled. "You will surrender immediately, or face the consequences." The weapon discharged with a brilliant flash of superheated plasma, striking the wall behind the humans and vaporizing a section of concrete. The demonstration of power should have sent any primitive species into panic. Instead, the three humans watched with what appeared to be genuine interest. Dr. Kim actually began clapping her hands together in applause. "Very impressive energy output," she said admiringly. "The plasma containment field is particularly well designed. The temperature must reach several thousand degrees at the focal point." Her calm reaction to a weapon that could have killed her instantly sent chills through Velthan's entire body. No primitive being should react to lethal force with scientific curiosity. Should probably mention, Dr. Kim continued conversationally, "that our atmospheric monitoring systems detected your ships the moment you entered our solar system. We have been tracking your approach for the past 4 months." The words hit Velthan like a physical blow. "You knew we were coming?" "Of course," Dr. Park replied, not looking up from the quantum communicator he was still examining. "Been monitoring Catherian expansion patterns for over a century. Your species follows very predictable routes when searching for new territories to absorb." Dr. Lee pulled up star charts on his screens, showing detailed maps of Catherian space. That included information about fleet movements, resource allocation, and strategic planning. Your empire expands in spiral patterns, always seeking worlds with specific characteristics. Earth matched your target profile perfectly. The humans began asking questions that revealed knowledge no primitive species should possess. They inquired about defensive capabilities of the Catherian homeworld, about the composition of their battle fleets, about resource requirements for their expanding empire. Each question demonstrated understanding of galactic politics that should have been impossible. "How many worlds do you plan to conquer this cycle?" Dr. Kim asked with genuine curiosity. "Your current expansion rate suggests you need approximately 12 new resource worlds to maintain your growth projections." Velthan realized with growing horror that these humans understood their civilization better than many of her own officers did. Velthan's survival instincts finally overcame her shock. This situation had spiraled far beyond a simple first contact mission. These humans possessed knowledge and capabilities that threatened everything she understood about galactic civilization. She needed to contact the fleet immediately and request emergency backup. "We are returning to our ship," she announced, backing toward the laboratory's exit. "This encounter requires further analysis before we can proceed." But as she reached for her communication device, she discovered it was completely silent. No carrier signal, no quantum link, no connection to the orbiting fleet. The display showed active jamming across all frequencies, something that should have been impossible with primitive Earth. Technology. Dr. Lee stood at a workstation that had seemed like basic research equipment moments before. Now it hummed with complex energy patterns, displaying waveforms and frequency analyses that looked more advanced than anything in the Catherian fleet. His hands moved across control surfaces that materialized from what had appeared to be simple metal panels. "I apologize for the inconvenience," Dr. Kim said, her voice carrying genuine regret. "But we cannot allow you to contact your fleet until we better understand your intentions. Are you here for resource extraction, population absorption, or complete planetary conquest?" Velthan felt trapped, like prey that had walked into a carefully prepared snare. "You have no right to detain representatives of the Catherian Empire," she protested. "Our fleet will investigate if we fail to report." Dr. Park looked up from the quantum communicator he was still examining. "Your backup teams are experiencing similar communication difficulties," he said with an apologetic smile. "We have been monitoring their approach patterns since they left your ships. Standard protocol calls for 3 additional contact teams if the primary group fails to establish regular communication." The casual way he described their military procedures sent ice through Velthan's veins. These humans had not only anticipated their arrival but had studied their operational methods in detail. They knew exactly how Catherian first contact missions worked, down to the specific backup protocols. "How long have you been planning this?" Mordok demanded, his weapon still charged, but now seeming far less threatening than before. "Planning is not quite the right word," Dr. Lee replied, pulling up displays that showed detailed technical specifications. "We have been preparing for galactic contact for several generations. Your species was simply the first to arrive." Screens around him showed schematics that made Velthan's hearts race with fear. Detailed blueprints of Catherian ships, complete with structural weaknesses, power distribution systems, and defensive capabilities. Information that should have been impossible for any outsider to obtain. 17 vessels in your fleet, Doctor?" Lee continued, manipulating the holographic displays with practiced ease. "Standard Catherian configuration, though your flagship appears to have experimental modifications. Those shield generators are quite innovative."
Ow!
"Are they based on the new quantum resonance technology your scientists developed last cycle?" Velthan staggered backward, her legs barely supporting her weight. The shield generators were classified at the highest levels of military secrecy. Only a handful of beings in the entire empire knew about their existence. "This is impossible," she whispered. "You cannot know about classified military technology." Dr. Kim stepped closer, her expression showing what might have been sympathy. "Commander, we have been observing your civilization for over a century. Every signal you broadcast, every quantum signature you emit, every energy pattern you generate. We have been studying all of it. We know about your expansion patterns, your resource requirements, your military capabilities. We understand your political structure, your social hierarchies, your technological development paths." Dr. Park activated another display that showed star charts spanning half the galaxy. Catherian space was marked in detail, but so were the territories of dozens of other civilizations. "We also know about the Andromedan Trade Consortium," he said, highlighting a cluster of systems. "Their merchant fleets follow predictable routes between resource worlds." More areas lit up on the display. "The Helix Collective maintains strict borders but expands through diplomatic absorption. The Void Runners prefer hit-and-run tactics, striking isolated worlds and disappearing before reinforcements arrive." Velthan felt her worldview crumbling. The humans were describing galactic politics with the expertise of seasoned intelligence analysts. They knew about civilizations that the Catherian Empire had barely made contact with, understood strategic patterns that took her species decades to recognize. "You have been watching all of us," she said, the words coming out as a horrified whisper. "For much longer than you realize," Dr. Kim confirmed. "Humanity made a decision centuries ago. We could either join the galactic community as junior members, competing for resources and territory like everyone else, or we could remain hidden and study all of you from a position of safety." Dr. Lee pulled up tactical analyses that showed battle formations, fleet movements, and strategic assessments for dozens of species. "We learned about your weaknesses, your conflicts, your expansion patterns, till we prepared for the day when one of you would finally notice our little world." The implications crashed over Velthan like a tidal wave. Earth was not a primitive world waiting to be conquered. It was a fortress hidden in plain sight, inhabited by a species that had been preparing for galactic warfare for generations. "What do you want from us?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Dr. Kim smiled, but there was something predatory in her expression. "That depends entirely on what you want from us, Commander." Dr. Kim gestured toward a doorway that had been invisible. Moments before, I think it's time you saw what humanity has really been doing for the past few centuries, she said, her voice carrying a quiet confidence that made Velthan-esque scales prickle with unease. The doorway led to a corridor that stretched far deeper into the earth than the simple research facility should have allowed. As they walked, transparent walls revealed chambers that defied everything Velthan understood about primitive civilizations. Massive machines hummed with energy signatures that exceeded Catharian technology, while beings in simple clothing operated controls that managed forces beyond her comprehension. "This cannot be real," Mordok whispered, his weapon forgotten as he stared at manufacturing systems that assembled materials at the molecular level. "These are basic humans working with technology that surpasses our most advanced laboratories, Dr. Tracha." Kim heard his comment and smiled. "You assumed that a civilization limited to one world must be primitive. You believed that staying on our home planet meant we lacked the ability to leave." They reached an observation deck that overlooked a vast underground complex extending far into the Earth's depths. Velthan pressed her face against the transparent barrier, watching as countless levels of activity stretched beyond her ability to see. Energy conduits carried power that made her ship's reactors seem like simple batteries. Transportation systems moved materials and personnel with efficiency that made Catharian logistics look clumsy. "We chose to remain on Earth," Dr. Kim continued, "not because we could not leave, but because we did not need to. What? Why scatter across the galaxy when we could build everything we needed right here?" Dr. Park activated control surfaces that materialized. From the walls around them, holographic displays filled the air, showing images that made Velthan's heart stop beating. Human ships moved through space with designs unlike anything in their databases. Sleek vessels that seemed to bend light around them. Massive structures that harvested energy from stars themselves. And defensive platforms that monitored entire star systems. "These are our observation posts," Dr. Park explained, highlighting installations throughout the galaxy. "We have been watching every major spacefaring civilization for over 3 centuries. Your empire, the Andromedon traders, the Helix Collective, the Void Runners, dozens of others." The displays showed human colonies that had existed for generations, hidden among asteroid fields and on worlds that other species had dismissed as uninhabitable. Each installation was carefully concealed. It's designed to watch and learn without revealing humanity's true capabilities. Dr. Lee joined them at the observation deck, carrying data tablets that showed strategic analyses of galactic civilizations. "Every species we encountered followed the same pattern," he said, scrolling through centuries of collected intelligence. "They developed space travel, expanded aggressively, and eventually began looking for primitive worlds to exploit," he showed them detailed studies of Catharian expansion patterns, Andromedon trade routes, and the territorial conflicts that had shaped galactic politics for millennia. "We realized that joining this competition would be pointless. Instead, we decided to let everyone believe Earth was exactly what you expected to find." The implications crashed over Velthan like a crushing weight. Humanity had not been surprised by their arrival. They had been waiting for it, preparing for it, planning for this exact moment for centuries. Every aspect of their primitive appearance had been carefully crafted to deceive potential invaders. "Your cities, your technology, your apparent conflicts," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "All of it was designed to make us underestimate you." Dr. Kim nodded. "We maintain the illusion of a divided primitive species while secretly developing technology specifically designed to counter threats from advanced civilizations. We studied your weapons and built defenses, analyzed your strategies and prepared countermeasures." The observation deck's displays shifted to show defensive systems that had been monitoring the Catharian fleet since it entered the solar system. Energy weapons that could strike targets across interplanetary distances, shield generators that could protect entire continents, and manufacturing systems that could produce fleets of warships within days. "We have been preparing for this moment for over 300 years, Dr. Lee said, his voice carrying the weight of generations of planning. "Every alien civilization we studied eventually reached the same conclusion: find weaker species too. Conquer. We decided to be ready when someone finally noticed our world." Dr. Kim stepped closer to Velthan, her expression shifting from friendly scientist to something far more dangerous. Now you have a choice, Commander. You can return to your fleet and inform the Catharian Empire that Earth is under human protection. You can spread word throughout the galaxy that humanity is not the primitive species you expected to find. Her voice carried an authority that made Velthan's exoskeleton tremble. Or you can choose to treat this as a challenge and face a species that has spent centuries preparing for galactic warfare. Act. The decision is yours. As security personnel escorted the stunned Catharians back to their landing craft, Velthan realized the full scope of their mistake. They had not discovered a new world to conquer. They had awakened a sleeping giant that had been quietly watching the galaxy for centuries. Preparing for the day when someone would finally threaten their world, the transport lifted off under human supervision, carrying them back to a fleet that had no idea what they had truly encountered. As the ship's engines engaged, Dr. Parks's voice came through their communications one final time. Safe travels, Commander. Please share what you have learned with the rest of the Catharian Empire. We would hate for there to be any more misunderstandings about the nature of humanity.